Easter proclaims that nothing is impossible with God and that his love can overcome all obstacles. St. Francis of Assisi. There was only the faintest gray light at the edge of the window when I first stirred. Not enough to call it morning yet, just that soft hint, the world holding its breath before dawn. For a moment, I didn't remember where I was. Then I heard it. He is risen! Francis. His voice carried down the stone hallway, clear, joyful, almost boyish with delight. There was a pause. Then somewhere down the hall, sleepy and muffled, "He is risen indeed!" A small laugh followed. Francis, again, louder this time, fuller, as though he were announcing it not just to us, but to heaven and earth. "He is risen!" And something in me woke all at once. "He is risen indeed!" I called out, already throwing back the covers, my heart suddenly pounding, not from urgency, but from joy. I scrambled out of bed, not bothering to change out of my very grandmotherly nightgown, laughing to myself. Of course he would do this. Of course. I opened my door. Francis stood in the middle of the hallway, barefoot, his habit catching the early light, his face radiant, radiant, like a man who had just witnessed the resurrection himself. Doors were opening all around. Claire stepped out quietly, smiling. David appeared, hair wild, eyes bright. Mom and Dad emerged together, Dad already reaching for her hand. Lucia came out half running, nearly colliding with Maria, who laughed and caught her. "He is risen!" Francis called again, turning slowly, making eye contact with each of us. And this time, fully awake, fully present, we answered together, "He is risen indeed!" Someone, Sean, I think, called out, "Alleluia! Alleluia!" we echoed. And then we were laughing, hugging, actually hugging. Even the desert father, who had spent most of the journey speaking in sparse, measured words, allowed himself a small smile as Elizabeth reached over and squeezed his arm. Pearl barked excitedly, weaving between us as though she too knew something had changed. Claire clapped her hands gently. "Breakfast will be shortly," she said, "enough to sustain you, but we will keep the fast for communion." There was a soft murmur of understanding. Even in the joy, there was order. Even in celebration, reverence. The streets of Jerusalem felt different. I don't know how to explain it. We had walked them all week, through sorrow, through reflection, through silence. But this morning, there was light everywhere. Lucia was skipping, actually skipping. Secretly, I wished I could join her. It felt like a day for skipping. He is risen, just as he said. It wasn't just the sunlight, though that too spilled golden over the stones, but something else, a brightness in the air, a clarity. Church bells rang in the distance, clear, jubilant, overlapping one another. Alleluia, alleluia, alleluia. We joined the flow of people moving toward the church, families, pilgrims, locals dressed in their best, children holding flowers, women in white, men in pressed shirts, and everywhere, smiles. We entered the church. It was transformed. Where Good Friday had been bare, stripped, solemn, where Saturday had been made of candlelight alleluias, now white and gold, flowers everywhere, lilies, roses, blossoms spilling over the altar. The paschal candle stood tall, its flame steady and bright, and the air. Oh, the air. Incense, yes, but also something fresh, like new beginnings. The music began, not slowly, not somberly, but with joy. The organ filled the space, voices rising. Hallelujah, Hallelujah, Hallelujah. Alleluia, alleluia, alleluia. I felt it in my chest, in my throat, in my hands. We stood together and I realized we had made it. Through Palm Sunday's tension, through the cleansing, through the darkness, through the stripping, through the cross, through the tomb, and now this. The priest spoke. The readings proclaimed what we already knew but rejoiced to hear again. He is not here. He is risen as he said. David stood beside me, quietly following along. Mom held Dad's sleeve, looking at him with a glow. Dad stood tall, his face peaceful. And when it came, the renewal of baptismal promises, we all held our breath, waiting to hear ancient words and to agree with them. The priest asked, "Do you renounce sin?" "I do." "Do you believe?" "I do." And then the sprinkling, holy water, cool droplets landing on my face, my hands, a reminder you are made new. You belong to Him. You are alive. And then the Eucharist, the culmination, the center. We approached one by one, and when I received Him, not symbol, not memory, Him, everything in me quieted and filled at the same time. By afternoon, the city had shifted again, still joyful, but now celebratory, alive in a different way. We gathered for a large Israeli Christian meal, long tables, laughter, food spread generously, warm bread, roasted meats, vegetables seasoned with herbs I couldn't name, olives, dates, honey, tomatoes, a cucumber, yogurt. Someone poured wine. Someone else told a story. Lucia laughed so hard she nearly dropped her plate. Sean teased Liam about something from the tunnel. Maria and Aoife compared notes on food. Pearl sat faithfully beside Mom, hopeful but dignified. Agnes, having somehow escaped Claire's pack, peeked out from under the table, accepted a small offering, and disappeared again like a tiny shadow. Easter Sunday dinner was not rushed. It was not forced. It was human and holy. We gathered one last time in the meeting room at JUC. The large stone walls glowed softly in the evening light. No candles now, no darkness, just warmth. Francis stood at the front, quiet for a moment, looking at us, all of us. "Friends," he started, "Easter proclaims that nothing is impossible with God and that His love can overcome all obstacles." And then he said, gently, but almost swelling with pride, "You have all walked well." He let the silence sit. Then, "Before we part, let us speak." He nodded to Claire. Claire stepped forward. "I think," she said softly, "that I have learned again that love does not prevent suffering." She glanced at Francis. "Nor does suffering prevent love." A pause. "But Christ has filled both." The Desert Father shifted slightly. "I have lived much of my life in silence," he said, "but I see now that silence must sometimes walk among others." A faint smile. "You have been a good noise." We laughed. Father Maximilian Kolbe folded his hands. "Love is not proved in comfort," he said. "It is proved in sacrifice." His eyes moved across us. "You have begun to understand this." Elizabeth stood calmly. "Obedience is rarely dramatic," she said. "It is often quiet, repeated, costly." She nodded slightly. "You have practiced it here." David took a breath. "I came looking for understanding," he said. "I think I found something better." He smiled slightly. "Trust." Mom looked around, her eyes shining. "I didn't know if I could still do this at 84, she said, "but I think the Lord wanted me here." She squeezed Dad's hand. "And I'm so glad He did." Dad nodded. "This week," he said, "has felt like being let into something sacred." He paused, "and being trusted with it." Maria smiled warmly. "I have walked many roads," she said, "but this one," she shook her head gently, "this one will stay with me." Finally, Francis stepped forward again. "Tomorrow," he said, "many of you will go." A quiet settled over the room. "Some early," he continued, "to Tel Aviv, to flights, to home." He looked at us, not sadly, but fully. "I do not think this ends the pilgrimage." He gestured gently. "It only changes the roads we walk." We didn't rush away. We lingered, spoke quietly, made plans, promised to write, to call, to pray. And as I stepped out into the evening air, Jerusalem glowing softly under the fading light, I realized something I hadn't expected. I wasn't afraid to leave, because what we had come for, what we had walked toward, was not a place, not even a moment, but a person, and he was no longer in the tomb. He is risen indeed.